Welcome to They Are Waiting for Us from Forbes Books, the podcast that explores how education can transform lives and communities, featuring conversations with change agents who are making a difference in education, from parents and advocates to teachers and leaders. Here's Dr. Lisa Andrew.
My guest this week is Chandra Alexandre. Chandra is a true champion and visionary for social justice. As the CEO of Community Action Marin, she has over 25 years of experience empowering organizations and communities. In a world that needs more justice, equity, and inclusion, Chandra Alexandre stands out as a thoughtful and compassionate leader dedicated to community empowerment and progressive change. Chandra, welcome to They Are Waiting for Us.
Lisa, thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be with you today.
Great. So your career, my goodness, it has spanned the nonprofit, academic, and public sector. Is there a unifying thread or like a why that runs through your work despite the type of organization that you're serving in?
Lisa, I think that whatever I do, it's about fighting the good fight. And as a champion for racial justice, for economic mobility, for people to have opportunity no matter their zip code, this is my why. And in every space I've inhabited, I've wanted to create room, share power, build relationships, create connections. And as I think many of us like to say, instigate good trouble and make it possible for people to find their purpose and their passion and live that in a way that makes them happy, brings joy, and creates a better world for all of us.
Yeah, what really resonates with me about that answer, and that I hope that our listeners are hearing, it doesn't matter what type of organization you're serving in, you can still bring those very powerful values and ideals to the forefront. And as you said, just make some good trouble no matter where you are. So I think that's so important. It's not about the building you're driving up to or the Zoom call that you're zooming in on.
Yeah, and willing in and across any space to do your best to be who you are, because regardless of the environment, those spaces need all of what you've got and all of your courage, all of your authentic full self. And I think for me, that is just my commitment and my work.
So doing that, bringing your full self, being your authentic self, fighting for racial justice, social justice, economic justice, educational justice, that takes a lot of inspiration, energy, focus. Where do you draw your source of inspiration from, Chandra?
On a daily basis, Lisa, it's making an intention to connect inward. And for me, that is a specific daily practice of meditation and reflection. And I've certainly honed that over the years and have stayed committed to, I need that place of peacefulness in myself and groundedness in myself if I'm able to do any kind of work in the world and have that be a closed loop of feeding me rather than drying me up, right? Because it's hard work that we do every day. And I think the other thing that inspires me is seeing kindness in the world. And I was born in New York and raised in a really kind of just environment filled with its own challenges. And I know that I can go out there with a fight. And that's really important to have that energy and drive. But what I've learned over time and what I continue to be inspired by is seeing people choose to be kind and choose to show up with an open heart and a willingness to learn. And the more that I've learned and grown over the year, regardless of what that space has been, really trying to connect with people in a true way has meant that I've become a more compassionate leader. And certainly my hope is a kinder person. And I continue to set that intention every day to be as kind as I possibly can be.
True. And so needed now. And it's free. It's free. Yeah. That's what I tell myself, my family, folks that I get to interact with every day. And this is free, just to give your kindness and to truly connect with other human beings on this earth. So that's great. When's the last time you saw an act of kindness?
Oh, let's see. Probably yesterday, and I was at a convening of a bunch of different folks, and somebody touched somebody on the arm and just brought them in a little closer to have a connection. And I saw a smile right where there wasn't one before. It's human beings being in connection and feeling safe in physical proximity, feeling psychologically safe, and feeling like who they are is seen, is acknowledged, and it matters. And I think that's a really deep kind of kindness. It does take energy. It does take intention. So again, for me, it's reconnecting to, you got to try harder tomorrow. You got to try harder this next minute, and reminding myself of the value of that in our world.
Yeah. Thanks for the example. I know I want our listeners to be like, what is she talking about? What is kindness? Well, there's a great example that maybe we all can go out and emulate. So you have a very diverse educational background, very diverse. I remember when I was researching you and reading up on you, I'm like, oh my good grief, to be in the presence of this person who is an intellect in a spiritual realm, an intellect in a academic realm, an intellect about nonprofit, about education. So what I'm really interested in, though, is how has your diverse educational background informed your approach to reform?
Education is an incredible crucible. And when we choose to go into an educational institution, and I know this is true for me, whether it was my undergrad or with greater intentionality, my graduate work, it was really about, this is going to be an initiatory experience. Now I'm going to meet people who I disagree with. I'm going to be pushed up against ideas that challenge me, that also create opportunities for me to think differently. And so through graduate school, it really was a process of refinement and honing, and really just staying open to my commitment to learn. And I think I said this, but being open-hearted takes work. And education is an incredible way to have us recommit to doing that work and being in thought partnership with others who say, I'm here to create something that I don't yet know how to do, but I'm committed to that process. So that's part of what those different kinds of educational spaces have meant to me. And I think intellectual capacity is really about being willing to change your mind, being willing to stay open to other approaches and be in conversation with that. And again, that's an area that takes courage. Part of what I've learned is, if nothing else, the initiation of an educational experience can be about being willing to be courageous and standing with others in that space of saying, we don't know yet, but we're willing and we're committed to have different kinds of outcomes. And I think in ed reform, that's particularly true when we look at the container of a classroom, be that an early childhood classroom or an elementary school classroom or a high school or college or graduate school classroom. If those containers can be held in ways that celebrate what everyone is bringing in and allow them to find themselves in that space and find connection with others in that space, learning happens. And part of what I know you are and I am deeply committed to, is allowing that vibrancy of individual learning in and through connection to blossom and happen. So I think that's part of what I've learned in those variety of experiences, is being a better me, is creating a kind of humility that puts me in better relationship with others and enables me to learn and grow and change the kinds of things I don't like or I don't want to be true about the world we're currently living in.
Yes. Yeah. Such empowering a way of looking at any level of classroom. I love how you refer to that. I mean, a kindergartner that can question, a third grader that can question, an eighth grader that can question, and it's invited. I mean, it's accepted and celebrated. Not, this isn't about just sitting and getting. I just see those patterns of behavior. I mean, right now we're working on a really strong leadership team knows how to have productive conflict. And if we're not having productive conflict, then we're not bringing our true best ideas and rubbing and really making each other better, which then is going to be a better product, if you want, for whatever services we provide or how we show up in the world. So definitely resonates with me what you said, that is so needed for the reform effort, because it's in being in community. Yeah.
Be willing to push back, right? Have the teachers in those educational spaces who say, bring it, give me what you got. I want to hear. I want to, help to nurture that spirit. And the other thing I think for us later in life, if you're in grad school, if you're in the work world, if you see something, say something, be willing to step up and into. It's easy to not, but part of what social justice requires and the change requires for equity is us willing to be courageous and to fortify ourselves in and through connection, people and places, nature and practice, whatever that is for us, to say, yeah, I can do this, and to feel like someone has your back, and or to believe and trust, whether it's faith or something else, right? That spiritual connection that we might individually feel, someone's got our back, and we're empowered in this lifetime to make it happen. I have to remind myself of that.
Yes, we all. So being the CEO, having the privilege to be able to sit in that seat, from your perspective, what kind of strides have been made in seating women in leadership roles in the nonprofit sector? And besides the strides, if you can also share, where is there space for improvement?
Well, I think the nonprofit sector, possibly more than many other spaces, has accepted women in leadership. I think the key challenge is paying us like men. And we know that I'm looking at a Northern California report on compensation. Women CEOs in Northern California are paid 12% less than male CEOs. That's a problem. That's an area where we can look and grow. I think there are mindset shifts we need to make. Women in the nonprofit sector are seen sometimes as doing the, work of charity, or it's an altruistic position of privilege that they'll go donate their time and they shouldn't be compensated. Or in my work in early childhood education, that's a lot of what Community Action Marin does. Our workforce and the work of caring for early education of young children, that's traditionally been the work of women and women of color. And what does that mean? Well, it's an underpaid sector. Mm-hmm. Early childhood, in-home supportive services. Our Western mindset, the developed world mindset, says it's the work of caring. It's women's work. We don't need to pay them. They've got a breadwinner at home, right? Making the money. And so we can undervalue, underpay. And I think that's continuing to be an issue every day. In 2023, we're still fighting for that kind of visibility, that kind of equity. And it's in the systems level changes we need to see in how we're funding, right? State early childhood programs. It's in how we're choosing to fund and hold educators writ large. It's how we're choosing to support women being CEOs in spaces of leadership in nonprofits. And I think that continues to be an issue with boards of directors. And it's something that we continue to have to push on.
Yeah, agreed. And I don't know how many times I've heard well, you're doing this work, why you're doing nonprofit work is because what feeds you is the soul work that you're doing, not, well, what's going to feed my family, and what's going to feed my future. And so definitely some more work to be done in that area, and we'll continue to push on that for sure. So talked a little bit about early childhood ed and education in general. In your view, what needs to change to ensure every child thrives as a citizen in the Bay Area?
Yeah, well, citizen or not, documented or not, status aside, children are children. They're our hope. They're our future. They're where we have to start. And all of what we know has to come into play as people to say early education matters, children matter. The universal pre-K, the movement in California for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds to have an opportunity to get an education so that parents can work or go to school, that their children are safe, that we have brain development happening, that we have kids supported in learning environments, bilingual, multicultural environments that support all of us. And I think there's a lot of good work happening at the systems level, the level of policy, and we're pushing. I think that one key problem is we continue to be hugely under-resourced. The kinds of challenges that we face, the lack of teachers for early education is a national problem right now. The challenges of transitional kindergarten in public schools and how the school districts and early educators can work together but are under-resourced in moving that needle. One other big challenge is leveraging the funding that we have. The federal Head Start funding, and my agency is the grant recipient in the county of Marin for Head Start and Early Head Start. How do we choose to say we can find the capacity? We're committed to being in this work together, early educators and TK teachers and district leaders. And we're going to figure out how to best use those federal dollars for 4-year-olds, because otherwise, guess what, right? They're going to go back. We need to be creative. And despite being under-resourced, we need to commit to these kids and say, we're going to figure it out because you matter. And right now, those are really, really difficult conversations. People don't have the time or the bandwidth, and they're getting pushed. And we've got to know and trust one another. And that's been a divide historically between early childhood and pre-K and kindergarten readiness. How do we make sure that those opportunity gaps that exist for kindergarten readiness and now TK aren't going to be there in another year, another couple of years? And I think if we're smart and we start with funding and say, look, we've got dollars to invest in social emotional for kids, for the kinds of classrooms we want to see, but we've got to partner on this better, I think it can happen. It's going to take a lot of concerted effort, but that's what I would say is needed.
Right. One of the things that we've been talking about a lot here is just how indoctrinated we are with this scarcity mindset, which you spoke to. And sometimes I feel like there's this tension between our legislators wanting this, birth to 16, meaning grade 16 continuum, yet then set that same set of folks set us up as and slicing and dicing the resources. And this much is going to go here, this is going to go here, but you all need to work in a continuum. But it's limited how much you all have.
It's hugely complex, and people don't understand the funding mechanisms or how state subsidized childcare works and how are you supposed to leverage federal dollars. And so a lot of what I'm doing and my agency is doing in our ecosystem is educating. Bringing a diverse set of stakeholders together from the County Office of Education, early childhood experts, providers, school districts, LEAs. We're bringing folks together to have the conversation, and people's eyes get wide when they say, really, we can use this funding for enhanced special education, for full day, full school year programs, to bring in more social emotional support, to provide comprehensive dental screenings. We can do these things for our children as whole people, as whole kids. Mm-hmm. And it's tough because we're not taught. It's siloed, as you're mentioning, and we're not taught how the money works or how the money flows or what we can do. And everyone's scrambling.
Right. It's also like this protective and this is mine and I don't really want to talk to you. But yet part of this is that I have to talk to you. It's just this really a system that is set up with expectations of a continuum. However, it's financed with expectations of siloedness. So there's much to be done. And we have so much more to get to, Chandra, but we have to stop here. Stay tuned for the second part of my conversation with Chandra Alexandre, the CEO of Community Action Marin. She will tell us what she hopes to achieve with her work and what legacy she wants to leave behind.
I get asked all the time by people in affluent Marin, what can I do, right? How can it matter what I contribute? And I say, just start.
Yes.
Just do the one thing that you can do. So I think that's what I would hope, is that at the very least, I could inspire others to continue doing that one thing.
This has been They Are Waiting for Us. If you want to learn how to create economic opportunity through equal access to quality education and create an extraordinary learning environment focused on everyone realizing their full potential, go to drlisaandrew.com. They Are Waiting for Us is a production of Forbes Books.